Right, well, welcome to the second of two talks this month. On the 11th of August we had a talk entitled Evolve Your Core Vibration and Be More Effective by Cosmic Claire, and I do believe that that talk is now available on the We Are Change site. If anybody missed it here would like to have a look at that, highly recommended. So on to this evening. We're very pleased to welcome Steve Spry, who has come over from Manchester. Just a little bit about Steve before we start. Steve is an electronic engineer. In 2011, he was sued by Sony for breach of patent. During the 12-month battle, which involved hacker group Anonymous, he became aware of the big deception we all live under. Modern-day slavery is alive and well, and we are all being subject to it. So please welcome from Manchester, Steve Spry.
In 2011, Sony started suing me. It was a big surprise. I'd never been through a patent battle, and it was a bit confusing as to the procedures for sort of dealing with that. But if you get a big corporation coming and picking on you, and you run to a solicitor with the paperwork, and you say, I'm getting sued by Sony, and they'll say, well, it'll cost you £1 million, and it'll take you 3 years to fight this in the High Court. So you can either pay up, and fight them, or you can sign their paperwork and admit illegal activities. I wasn't prepared to sign their paperwork, and I didn't have £1 million, so I took the only other route, which was to defend myself in the High Court. So I did a crash course in intellectual property law, and started to learn about these things, like the way the corporations function. And the High Court it's a very corrupt institution, where we go running for things. And if you've got enough money, you can use that process to effectively put somebody out of business, or harangue and harass them. And whoever's got the most money generally wins in the High Court. I didn't have any money. I told them at the beginning, I said, don't sue me. I haven't got any money. It's the first rule of litigation. Do not sue somebody who can't pay you. It's just silly. And it took quite a bit of work, and I did masses of paperwork to sort of put in. Under the civil procedure rules in this country, and they're very important when you're dealing with any aspect of the court system, is if you don't deny something, you admit it. So if you ignore the paperwork, it's not going to go away. What you're effectively doing is admitting what they're claiming. So it's a step-by-step thing, going through and putting a defence to the High Court where you just deny every single element of what is being charged. And that's the same with lots of things that we do, when we're challenging it. It's an important part of fighting through this corrupt system. I didn't win in the High Court. After 12 months, Sony got awarded £20,000 because a lord decided that I'd breached their community trademark. And after 12 months, that was just one section of the case. Sony didn't ask for the money, and that's the first thing you do. If you get awarded some money in the court, you ask for it. They didn't even ask it. They knew I didn't have £20,000. They do, they stuck private detectives in the. I had an office in Blakely in Manchester. They stuck private detectives for the whole 12 months in the building next door to monitor, what I was up to, comings and going. I was running with my brother. They were photographing my brother, his car, and basically very, very intrusive. Halfway through the battle, I was having a lot of fun putting applications in. They wanted me to go to London and fight in the High Court in London. I said, well, I can't do that. I've got a bad back. You'll have to come to Manchester. And with the CPR, that's the normal procedure. They should come to your local court and deal with whoever's being sued. They have to come to you. But the court system's not like that. We ended up with a video feed And through these applications that I was putting in, it delayed the case, you know, to such a degree that Sony didn't sort of like it. And what I found was that they instructed Greater Manchester Police, Manchester Council, Trading Standards. I was raided. I had something like 30 or 40 customer computers, consoles, you know, electronic stuff that I was repairing. They just came and seized everything. All my computers, computers I was using to, like, you know, to compile paperwork to file this battle in the High Court. And by taking it, they were effectively perverting the course of justice. And you look at this and you think, well, how has this corporation got this much sway that they can instruct GMP, right, and Manchester Trading Stand to come in and basically harass me and take, you know, property and when I followed the paper trail, and it's difficult, you've got to put in like freedom of information requests, like subject data access requests, like, you know, and find out what's actually happened to this. And the GMP had seized it in conjunction with Manchester Trading Standards, and they'd given it to a third-party company called UKIE, UK Interactive Entertainment, who is basically Sony. It's financed by Sony, Nintendo, like, you know. So what they were doing is taking High Court paperwork off me, like the defence statements, like, you know, stuff I was preparing in my defence, and handing it to the opposition in the High Court. If that's not perverting the course of justice, I don't know what is. But that's what they get away with, and that's what all the corporations get away with. It's a corporate structure. I put in complaints to GMP, the council, UKIE, and I was going through all the complaint systems, and I started noticing that they're all the same. At stage one of each of these corporations, because they're all corporations, they investigate themselves and invariably find themselves not guilty of any wrongdoing. It's a corporate structure. And then they take it to stage two, where they just do the same thing, stage three. With the police, like, you know, you can eventually get up to the IPCC, which is, again, like, it's just set up to give the illusion, right, that it's a fair complaint system. It's not. You're living in it's a dictatorship cleverly disguised as a democracy. When they go and invade countries like Libya and they get rid of a dictatorship, they replace it with a dictatorship that looks like a democracy. This corporate structure, and they can get away with murder. I attended an eviction here in last week, and there was Wesley Ahmed, like his cousin Anthony Granger was shot dead on the streets. He was shot dead unarmed. Police just surrounded the vehicle and shot him dead centre mass, as they're trained to do, and executed him. They claimed he was an armed robbery. He's never been convicted of armed robbery. They did a most unusual thing in that case, where they put him on trial for armed robbery, but he was already dead. Wesley went to the court, and he had leaflets printed, and when the judge got hold of one of these leaflets, he sent the jury out, and he said to the prosecution, he said, I think we're going to have to tell the jury that Anthony Granger was shot dead by police. They weren't going to tell the jury. It's an entirely corrupt system. So if they can shoot you dead on the street and get away with that, Chief Constable Peter Farr, in that particular case, he's charged with a health and safety violation. Any other group of people, if they were involved in a shooting someone dead, like, you know, at least be manslaughter, murder, something like that, not a health and safety violation. It's just ludicrous. It's one law for us and a different law for them that are running the place. So after dealing with Sony, all this corporation stuff started falling into line, and I was getting information from all over the world, because while I was fighting Sony, so was Hacker Group Anonymous, and the information that was coming in was all about more of the corporate structure of, like, you know, the way that other things function, the way the councils, like, you know, the government function, and after Sony sort of gave up and went away, I got more stuck into what Roger Hayes was doing. Right? He fought the councils on the council tax issues, and he'd done sterling work, like in attempting to arrest the judge over in Birkenhead, turning people out in their thousands. So I joined the British Constitutional Group. I filed my affidavit, became a free man on the land, and I've been looking into it ever since. And I think when I first meet people and sort of start talking about how you're going to tackle and sort of disconnect yourself from this system, I started with the bills, things like the television licence, and once people understand why you don't need to pay the television licence, it's obvious now with the BBC financing people like Jimmy Savile and other people, Rolf Harris, that's going to go on and on. They plan to drip feed us all these cases, because there's hundreds of them. Right? It's endemic in the BBC. It's endemic in the government. Right? They were up to it 20, 30 years ago, and they can admit that. Right? They're up to it now, and they're just covering it, covering the backs on it. A lot of the control structure is Freemasonry. Right? The police are run by Freemasons. Right? When you look at the police uniform, you see the black and white check. That's on every Freemason lodge, every hall. You walk in and you see this black and white check pattern. Right? So when they see that, when the Freemasons see that, they know that they're in control. They're running things. So after I sort of looked at the structure of television licence, I got onto the council tax, and I think it was at that time that Tony Farrell popped up, and he started. He was arguing he was arguing the television licence under the Terrorism Act, which I thought was an excellent one, and obviously I knew there's other ways to deal with the television licence. You don't have to argue under that, but I thought that would be a perfect one for the council tax. So I started writing to the council and saying, I'm going to have to withhold payment. You can't refuse to pay. That's an offence. So you just withhold payment. They play about with words like they do with the penalty notices, the parking, the fines. They're illegal under the Bill of Rights, 1689. They know this, so they just change the word. But it's a different word. It's not actually a fine. So it's exempt from that particular. No, it's not. It's an illegal fine or forfeiture. So I won't pay a parking ticket. But I argued with the councils, and I said, I'm withholding payment under Article 3, Section 15 of the Terrorism Act 2000. If I knowingly pay you, and I know that you're terrorists, I'm guilty of it, I could be arrested and locked up on that charge. So I gave that to them, and I didn't get any coherent answer back. They don't want to argue this, the council don't want to argue it, and I'm pretty sure they'd not had this argument before in the council tax offices, so they didn't have a set response. I got letters back saying don't accept and the standard Freeman arguments they had prepared letters for, but they hadn't prepared for this one. I work closely now with the anti-fracking groups. I got doing the legal observing. We do legal advice for people doing protest work, and through that. We have close connections with solicitors, barristers, and one of the things that I did with the council tax was when I first started challenging it was taking the summons to the solicitor, and I said, well, look at this document, tell me if you think it's real or not. And he said, well, it doesn't clearly identify the person from the court. It's a scribble, it's printed on, and all the details are on the back to contact the council. Well, the council do not have the authority to issue summonses. It's got to be issued by a court. And as we know from cases that have been run for years, there was the famous Italian lawyer who was popping up, and he was having cases thrown out. I think it was annoying the government so much and they said, you're not even a lawyer, you're not qualified. He had his law degree from Serbia or somewhere and it makes it even worse. But all he was doing was looking through the paperwork and digging out the original documents. He was finding one forged document, and the rest of it is fruits of a bad trade. So I knew I was onto a winner when I established that the summonses were fraudulent. The next step when you go to court, whether you go to court or not, and I know Roger Hayes, like, you know, he's great going out and arresting the judge and going to court and arguing in that forum, but I don't think most of us should do that. Right? If you go into their forum, it's a corrupt forum, it's not a real court, right? You risk getting locked up. Right? Whether you go or not, they are going to issue a liability order. It's a fake liability order. It's not real. They don't exist. There's free men up and down the country that have established this. I rang the council. I got hold of well, it was the courts actually. I rang the courts and I got hold of a nice young lady who was telling me, well, they said we don't send you a copy of the liability order. What we do is we march into court. And last year in Oldham, there was about 600 people who didn't pay the council tax and they got issued a liability order. Each of those people were charged £75. So if you do the maths, like, you know, I think it's about £30,000 that the council back-pocketed for renting a courtroom for one day, going in with a big list of names and having it rubber stamped by a fake judge. Under the civil procedure rules in this country, for a liability order to be valid, they've got to send you a copy of that, a sealed court copy. So that was the next point that I established. The liability is fake. I think Roger Hayes did 21 days in prison. They collared him, they stuck him in front of a judge, they locked him up for 21 days for non-payment. An application of habeas corpus was put in before a judge for his release, and the judge said, you've not questioned the liability order. It was the biggest clue ever. Everybody after that rushed out and was issuing judicial review, you know, to try and quash these liability orders, but they don't exist. So it's a bit pointless. All you've got to establish is question that and point out that the liability order doesn't exist, and you know they can't hold it.
Do you mean the original liability order doesn't exist?
They don't issue liability orders. What they do is get a list of names. They have that rubber stamp by their fake court. Even the courts now are distancing themselves. They say no, you need to speak to the council on those issues. But it's an idea when you get these, or when they claim that they've got these documents, ring the court and say, well, you issued a liability order, because I've not had a copy. If you get the CPR, it's one of the most important books, if you go down the civil courts, you'll see solicitors, and barristers waving this white book around all the time. It's very important to them, but it's not real unless they send you a signed, sealed copy.
The court?
The court. And that's under the CPR, so they're just out and out breaching the law. I kept asking them, emailing them, send me a copy of the liability order. You shouldn't have to ask for it; they should just send it. And they would just send me back daft things there's a copy of your liability order attached, and it'd just be another letter from the council that they've attached. It's not a liability order. They don't exist. So you don't need to pay council tax. I've never liked paying council tax anyway. I've always disagreed with it. I remember the days when it was the poll tax, and suddenly they changed the name, and it sort of went away. It's called the straw man.
Well, it is the straw man thing, yeah.
It's the Wizard of Oz,
exactly.
It's the straw man and the Wizard of Oz, but yes, they're creating a legal fiction. What they're doing is creating a corporation, because it's all corporations. The police are corporations, the council are corporations, the government, all the parties are corporations. If you go on the Dun and Bradstreet and check out, they're all registered as corporations. They're trading for profit. Greater Manchester Police, if you do the searches on them, they've got county court judgments in the name. Corporations. That's one of the lines that and obviously the Freeman thing has has done that from the outset. Pointed out the legal fiction, and it's a case of it's a name that you're given to supposedly at birth, so it's whether you want to stop using that. The Freeman movement calls themselves I'm Stephen of the family and peers. Yeah. But it's how you want to use it. I'm a doctor, so I can use a legal fiction. I don't like being called Mister. If somebody comes to me and if they ring up and say, "Is that Mister?" I say no. So it's up to you whether you want to lose the name totally. I think if you look back at the way that they installed things like second names, hundreds of years ago, people didn't have second names. They'd be Barry of Leeds or and there'd probably be like 10 or 20, it's impossible to apply income tax, if there's so many, and that's why second names are brought in, and that's why they brought in the birth certificates, but that's a corporation. If you just lose the corporation, lose the straw man, stop identity. My daughters went to a secondary school. I thought it's great, it's I thought it was great that the school that popped up really close, it's called New Spirit. It's around the corner from me in Chadderton, and it's funded by central government. What they're doing with the schools is disconnecting from the councils, because the councils get money for every child. They get the money paid from central. It's all paid from central government. So lots of things that we think that the council are raising revenue for is actually funded from central government. It's nothing. The council tax is nothing about getting that to pay for this and that. It's already funded. The council tax is back pocket money for them. They're laughing at us every time we pay it. They get their credit cards and they go on holidays. They twin the towns with daft places so they can go on big slap up meals and it's a huge con, and it needs people, normal people, to get in there and break the system up and say, well, what's all this been doing? We're just funding lavish lifestyles. They're not working in our favour. None of these corporations, a corporation by definition, does not work in favour of the people. The people are just there to fund it. All a corporation does is function for profit. More profit every year. It's not functioning correctly if it's not making more profit. And that's regardless of health and safety. And that's why you've got issues like the fracking issues, where the drilling through the water tables. We've got the Barton Moss site over in Salford. They're drilling through a water table. I was over in Hull, the fracking sites over in Crawberry Hill, West Newton. Both of those are drilling through the water table. All of the fracking sites are going through the water table. 60% of the country they've allocated for drilling through the water. All well casings fail. It's not a matter of if, it's when. So at some stage that water will be poisoned. And that will be the next thing that they're charging us for. You'll be going to the shop and the price will be going through the roof. It's happening in the United States at the moment. They've done fracking over there for quite a few years. The people have been poisoned en masse. If you have your house, if your fracking operation drills under your house, you won't get insurance. You've lost the value of that, and that's what they're trying to roll out over here now.
Changed the law, haven't they? So that at one point, if you had a freehold, it went right through the centre of the earth. Now it just goes down 2 miles.
I was in Belize a few years ago, and they had this issue, and they said, well, you own the property, but you don't own underneath it. What's the big deal about that? And this is where it comes to, they want to drill under the ground everywhere, and it's a drilling rig every mile, 1 or 2 miles, and they drill out in all different directions. It's a crazy way to get energy. What you're drilling out of the ground is energy that's been there for hundreds of thousands of years. When we've got energy, our energy comes from the sun. You've got an unlimited supply there, and they're drilling into the ground. It's ridiculous to drill down for energy when you've got so much coming. Naturally, you all the other alternative methods, wind power, wave power, they're all enough to provide all our energy needs. If it was rolled out, if we stopped buying bombs and weapons and going destroying countries, and spent a bit of that money on just installing solar panels and things like that. Africa is a prime example. You wouldn't need to it'd only be a small section of Africa that you'd need solar panels on, and that would power the entire planet. So with technology available today, we could cure the energy crisis. We can cure the pollution. The fears on the carbon rising. So it's all within our grasp. But what's happening is the corporations that are controlling things. And it goes up, if you follow the pyramid, it goes up to the rich banks, the bankers that are sat on more money than they can possibly earn, and possibly spend in their lifetime. Thousands of times over. They've got more. It's not about money. Money is worthless. It's all IOUs. It's bits of data floating about in a computer. most people, when I say to, you know, when you go to the bank, you're buying a house, they loan you the money to buy the house, don't they? And they say yes. I say no. Right? The money's created out of thin air. And this is what people have a hard time grasping this, like, you know, because it's, you know, we've just had so much trust in the banking system, but it's called fractional reserve banking. Right? You only need 1/10 of the money, so there's a limit to how much they can just create out of thin air. Right? But the rest of it's just like imagined into being, and that's why we have inflation. That devalues the rest of the money in circulation. I was going through the bills, obviously the council tax when I'd established that, and I'm quite happy now that they're not going to pester me for council tax. You know, so water rates I don't pay that. Like, you know, I think that, you know, and then I thought about the gas and electric. I don't like paying gas and electric. I looked into it, like, you know, and it's a weird structure, like, you know, you have people phoning up, like, you know, well, you know, who, you know, how much do you pay for this, like, and you've got Transco just transporting the gas. And if you think about it, it's not theirs. It's not their gas to sell. That's our gas. Right? They're just drilling it out of the ground. It doesn't cost that much to sort of drill into the ground and pump gas out and that, like, you know. Right? And they're overcharging us. Right? So I did a looking at that, and I thought, well, I'm going to challenge the bills, like, you know, but I didn't want to do it and just sort of be sat in the dark one day when they decided to, like, you know. So I installed solar panels on my house. I didn't get a corporation to do it. What you get when you call the corporations is, like, they charge you a minimum of £3,000, and they come out and they put a load of panels on the roof, like, and they plumb all that energy generated back into the grid. I thought, well, I don't want to give them power to the grid, like, you know. So I set my own system up, like, and I'm an electronic engineer, so I put the panels on. I wired the panels to charge batteries, and then I installed 12-volt LED lighting throughout the house. And I could charge laptops up, and like, you know, about 14 batteries, like, you know. I've got deep cycle batteries, like, you know, I've got car batteries. Car batteries are cheap, right? And just a few car batteries can, like, you know, give you enough power, like, you know, certainly for all your lighting and, like, you know, most of your energy needs, like, you know. So, you know, I did that a couple of years ago, and I thought, right, I'll tell them to get stuffed. I'm not paying them. I've been waiting 2 years now for them to disconnect me. They don't seem. But what I did, I was with E.ON, and I changed from E.ON. I went to Co-op Energy, like, you know, and E.ON were chasing it down. I proved that I owe it. Where's the copy of the contract under as per the 1974 Consumer Credit Act? And they don't have one. How are they going to take that to court when I'm going to go and argue that?
Are you still using?
Yes.
Stuff from me on
No, I disconnected from them, like, you know.
Right.
What I was looking at it, and I thought, well, I've paid Ian in the past, like, you know, right, so you could sort of say there's an implied contract, so they could go down that road. If I switch suppliers, I've got a new supplier. There's no implied contract. They can't say, well, you've already paid. Paid, just, you know. And with the new supplier, and then I just said that, well, where's your contract as per the 1974 Consumer Credit? And they don't have one. And they just keep sending me reminders, like, you know, you're a bit behind, like, you know, two years behind. And said, I thought by now they would have come, and I've written to them, I've said, like, you've got 14 days to remove your meters, otherwise you forfeit ownership, I'm going to charge you £100 a week storage. I thought that would have done it. I thought they would have come and, like, taken the meters away, like, you know, and they've not. It's just sort of ignored.
Send them the bill.
I've not sent them a big bill. That I was like, you know, you know. So, well, but when I get out, you know, I've been busy on, like, you know, all the observing and stuff that I go out, like, you know. So it's just been a surprise to me, like, you know, how they've not got onto the case.
So how long have you got away with it then now then, without paying that?
It's 2 years with the current company, and obviously E.ON there, like, I haven't paid for a year or so, like, you know. So we're talking about three years, like, you know, but it's, you know, they're overcharging, right? If they had a contract, right? I laughed last year when they upped all the gas by, I think it was the gas and electric by 10%. Well, if they had a contract, they just breached it, right? By upping it. Surely that wasn't in the contract, like, you know. So they don't even have a contract anyway. Like, when you connect with these utilities and that, like, it's a click on a, you know, it's a dot on a, like, you know, digits floating around in the computer, like, you know. It's not a lawful contract. It's not something they can walk into court and say that's that. So I don't think anybody's got to pay any of these bills. and you know I'll keep challenging them. It is programming, like, you know, and the CIA, a CIA agent came out a few years ago and said, do not watch television, never watch it. And that's what I've done. I used to watch Coronation Street and EastEnders, like, you know. And as I was slowly cottoning on to things, I was seeing stuff in them, and I thought, they're programming people.
Yeah.
Well, you know, and I had to, you know, and my wife was Nigerian, like, she was saying, is this what you people do? I thought, it's Coronation Street, it's not real. It's written by rich people that try and tell us what to do and that, you know. But she can understand it.
Apparently there's been a storyline in Coronation Street about Baileys.
Yes, there has,
It's
I was interested to see how it was going to play out,
Yeah.
actually, yeah.
It's just reinforcing that thing that you've like, oh, you've got to do this, you've got to go to work 9 to 5, like, you know. Why are we all like, you know, there's been push now, like, you know, years ago, like, you know, you know, you had women staying at home, like, you know, you had the men going to work, like, you know, so about 50% of the population not working, and all of a sudden, like, now in modern day, like, everybody's got to go out and work.
Called feminism.
Which, you know, if people want to go out and work, it's fair enough, but why the big push? Because they push people now to get out and work, like, you know, we're not in war, like, you could see, you know, during the Second World War, where, you know, the men were off fighting and get the women into the
It's not
factories to
just
work.
feminism, it's because people can't afford to get by without 2 wages.
Rockefellers openly admitted that they created feminism to create 50% more tax
That's
pay.
correct.
Originally.
And to destroy the family.
They're destroying the family unit, but they're occupying us, like, you know, with, you know, making us so busy running around, like, so that both people have to go out and work just to get by, just to pay the daft bills, that they just keep creating the bedroom tax. Where did they pull that one from? Right? It's just stuff that they think up. None of it's valid. It's all like the rich people do not pay these. Right? If you're super rich, you just form a corporation. Corporation never dies. It never pays death duty. Right? And it very rarely pays any tax. Right? But they're all corporations. Right? But I was getting information from all over the world on you know, all sorts of different subjects. And with me going into like the you know, the solar panels, I put up a wind turbine, like, you know, I started growing my own food. I've never been a farmer, so I started growing potatoes, and I've got an aquaponics centre. I grow tomatoes and, like, you know, and it's just, you know, little things to slowly get just slightly more self-sufficient, because everywhere we get our water and our food from, things that we need to live, it's controlled by a corporation. The head of Nestle came out last year and said water shouldn't be a human right, it should be a commodity that we can control. And that's what they do. They steal it. They go up and they what they do is give themselves corporate personhood. And I had this in the High Court where I went to an eviction hearing, and I argued Articles 6, 8, 10, 11, the European Conventions on Human Rights, as to why the protesters on the Davy Hume fracking site should not be evicted. They've got a right to a family life, like, you know, they've got a right to protest, they've got a right to gather, like, you know. And it just ruled it and threw, you know, and ruled in the corporation's favour, because the corporation has an Article 1 human right. I thought about that and I thought, how can you apply human rights to a corporation? It's a dead thing. It's a dead entity. Like, you know, it shouldn't be given personhood. Now you've got things like the transatlantic trade agreement, that they're trying to give corporations corporate sovereignty. Now this gives corporations more power than, like, you know, governments, right? So that they can overrule. So if they say somebody, you know, if you're a fracking company and somebody says you can't drill there, well, you've just stopped. Like, maybe your council says, like, you know, you're not allowed to drill there. Well, you've stopped that corporation making money, and they can fine the government for doing that. And that's the power that they're giving themselves, and that's what all the countries are signing up to. And that's the power they're giving the corporations, and that's what we need to stop. Arrest the power, like, you know, from the corporations. We need to take it back. You know, for the people, and, like, you know, get organisations together to challenge these things, and to take back, like, you know, what's rightfully ours. Like, there are more people there, you know, there's enough food for everybody, there's enough water. Right? We could cure, you know, starvation in Africa. You know, any kind of like, you know, we could ship food all over, we could ship water, like, you know, but they prefer to send really expensive vaccines over to places like that. And it's all about profit to them. Why not just send food and water? You know, they don't need the vaccines. The body will heal itself. If you're well fed and like, you know, if you've got enough water, the body can heal itself. It's depopulation. Agenda 21. And that's what we're seeing with the fracking. It's an excellent example of Agenda 21. We're in World War III already, and it's a silent war. There was a good document found by accident, like, you know, called "Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars," and it's all about, you know, everything that we consume. Like, you know, it annoys me now when I go to the supermarkets and everything's wrapped in plastic. One bit of plastic's not good. When we start wrapping everything in plastic, like, you know, we've got chemicals like BPA in the plastic, the leach from the plastic, microwave meals like that, you know, the chemicals leach into the food, like, you know, we're eating chemicals right, left and centre. I got rid of my microwave quite a while ago, you know. If you've still got a microwave, take the tray out. On most microwaves you've got a radiation symbol, it's a warning symbol right in the middle. They tell us things like, you know, but, you know, we just don't listen. It's like the word government. Govern is control, governmental. It's the mind. It's a mind control system. I was quite happily arguing the council tax on the terrorism issue, because I looked into the 7th of July bombings in 2005. Obviously, Tony Farrell had you know, done quite a bit on it, and like, you know, there's this book, which is Terror on the Tube, Behind the Veil. There's tons of stuff, like, you know, I think if you look at the 9/11, and that was a false flag operation. If you look at that, it's a very sophisticated one, and I think they put it together very, very well. They planned it very well. The 7th of July bombers, on the other hand, another false flag operation, run along similar lines. Right? There was an exercise being run on the 7th of July 2005, like, and the guy in charge of the exercise admitted this on national television. He said, "Yeah, we run an exercise." And the exercise, they planned for four terrorist bombs to go off on the London, three on the London Underground and one above ground. And as they're running the exercise, bombs started exploding in exactly the positions they planned in the exercise. The odds of that happening by accident, you know, are billions, if not trillions to one. Like, you know, of all the locations terrorists would pick, why pick them on, you know, exactly? You know, there's tons of stuff like, you know, and I'm currently doing the observing down on King Street in Manchester. It's a pro-Palestinian protest outside the Cadem shop, and I was shocked when they started bringing banners out, and they're doing pictures of the bus on the 7th of July bombings, and a picture of the Underground train blown up, with equals Islamic terrorism. And I know it wasn't. It had nothing to do with Islamic terrorism. It's rubbish. It was MI5 and Mossad. And Mossad admit on the 7th of July in 2005, they went to Benjamin Netanyahu's hotel room, who was in London at the time, and told him not to leave his hotel room because bombs would be exploding on that day, 10 minutes before they started exploding. That was one of the big boo-boos of, like, you know, the Mossad, like, you know, admitting these facts, like, you know, and leaking out. You know, so it's not hard to see and link that, and you know, so I think if you've not seen those, you're laughing at us, like, on the side of the bus, like, you know, outright terrorism, bold and
beautiful, yeah, seeing it.
Yeah. The bus exploded in Tavistock Square, outside the Tavistock Institute. Now, if you look into the global agenda of the Tavistock Institute, it's mind manipulation. They're telling us what they're doing, they're controlling us, and it's simple. They create a problem, like, oh, you know, the Cold War finished, like, all the CIA was losing its budget, MI5 was losing its budget, and all of a sudden Al-Qaeda pops up. That was convenient. Just as the Cold War finishes, a new enemy pops up, like, you know, and you've got a war on terrorism now. Obviously, Osama bin Laden, he used to work for the CIA. Well, I know when you're an asset for the CIA, like, you know, you don't retire and go off and run your own terrorist organisation. You never cease to be an asset until you die. Right? So they retire assets by killing them. Right? Lee Harvey Oswald, you know, obvious asset there that was retired, like shot by Jack Ruby, like who was a member of the mafia, another secret organisation that runs alongside. It's all these secret organisations running behind the scenes, and manipulating us, like, you know. So they create a problem. Right? We ask for, you know, we're in fear, and we ask the government to do something. So it's problem, reaction, and solution. They come up with a solution to a problem they created. They created the international terrorism. They're running around, like, you know, doing all these false flags. The Sandy Hook false flag was a complete joke, and, you know, it doesn't take a lot to look into that. They just bought up an area. They moved in, like, Department of Homeland Security staff, like, you know, in the school. They supposedly had a big shooting, like, where lots of children died, but they didn't have any injuries. There was no children rushed to casualty hospitals, like, it was bogus. The Boston Marathon bombings didn't happen. Steven Spielberg was pictured up there. They've got some amazing pictures of the Boston Marathon bombings. And a lot of those pictures released the next day from that. You know, people got hold of the footage, like, you know, the real people running around with the backpacks. The FBI didn't want to know. It said, don't look at anybody else's pictures. Just look at these two guys. We had guys running around with these backpacks on, and then pictures of them running away from the Boston Marathon with no backpacks on. Surely those the guys that you wanted to get hold of, or at least investigate. But no, they picked on two, like, you know, and they can manipulate things, like, you know. So now when I see a big incident, like, you know, the Lee Rigby thing, like, you know, there's been investigations into that, and it's clear he wasn't killed in that street. If he was killed at all. A woman bending over talking to you know, a body which supposedly had its head hacked off. Why is she talking to her? Must have been clear that there was no head. Or, you know, so obviously the BBC, your mainstream media, they're all complicit in this. Where they, you know, the BBC, the footage of the Lee Rigby ones, they painted blood on there. They put blood all over his hands to make it look. But you can find pictures where there's no blood on his hands. He's got, you know, clear, you know, on the live stream of the BBC, covered in blood. The bus that they stopped on that day, had a load of children on it, and they've got the audio from the bus, and the children said, "Do you think, you know, I want to go to the shop and get some sweets? Do you think the letters?" I would suggest that, like, somebody had told them to be on that bus and wait there, and that bus blocked a very, very busy road at the time. The car was supposed to have crashed into the signpost, not a scratch on the signpost. There's very thorough investigations that have been carried out, because all these false flags, they've got, you know, a thin veil, because they know nobody's they're gonna take the official view. They're gonna see what's on television and believe it. It's a very, very simple, you know, thing to look into. You know, so you can look into any of the major things. We're lied to on a massive scale. But you know, back to, like, you know, President Kennedy, and, you know, the manipulation is just it's so vast, and once you start picking on something, like, it's a rabbit hole, and you don't know how deep. I've not got to the end of the rabbit hole yet. Every time I uncover something, I find something new, and you think, well, you know, I'm gonna have to. It's going to take an ages. So it's to figure it all out is going to take a lot of work. But I think we're getting there, and, you know. But the first thing to do to beat the system is to stop financing them. Money's not worth anything. We're running around for bits of paper that are just an IOU. I like the film Dumber and Dumber, where he opens the case at the end and he says, "Where's all the money gone?" He says, "No, you've got it wrong. It's an IOU. It's as good as money." And it is. It's not backed by anything. If you go to the bank and say, "Well, you know, 20, you know, whatever this £20 note's backed by," they won't give you anything. It's not backed by anything. It's a bit of paper that we spend all our time running around trying to get, so that we can pay that bill, pay that bill. We're just being kept busy running around. It's a control system, a slavery system. So the first thing we need to do is stop playing that game. We need to, you know, grow our own food, barter, a system of barter. If we all adopted that, they won't be able to tax. How are they going to get their money? How are they going to force us to run around and that? So we need to get together as groups and, you know, start beating the system and working together. They work on a principle of divide and conquer, and we're all stuck in our little boxes watching the television, like, you know, manipulating, controlling us, they're making us depressed, like, you know. The closing pubs, like, you know, there's very few pubs left in Manchester. They seem to, like, you know, shut them all down, like, you know, because they don't want people meeting up and socialising, like, you know. So I think we need to regain some of what's gone on, like, you know, what people did before televisions existed. Right? And it's extreme. I've got kids, like, you know, you try and get them away from the Xbox and the play. It's very, very difficult, but I think that's what we need to do. Start disconnecting, start looking to some of the old stuff, and learning skills that they're trying to make us forget. Right? They don't want us growing our own food and, you know, becoming self-sufficient. But I think it's easier now with the technology that we've got. Like, it's so easy to get yourself a solar panel. When I started rolling onto the fracking sites, it was great. Because I've been looking into it, like, you know, but, you know, other people have been looking into it as well. And when they go on protest, they get their tents and they go and they plot up, and it could be at the side of a road, it's in the middle of a field. It doesn't matter where it is. They go and they live there. They get donations of food, and, like, they call outs on the net for food. They stick the solar panels up, they're charging laptop computers, mobile phones, like, you know. They've got live streams now on there, and you need it. You need to film the police because they're a corporation. They are going, and it's got two roles of police. They've got a corporate role, and they've got the normal bobby role, which is them acting under their oath of office. But when they're in their corporate role, that overrides their oath of office. They switch off. They've got radios now. It's great to see. Like, you've got to get out and see it, because you wouldn't believe what goes on. The abject violence that they're capable of, like, and they become automatons once they're clicked into this radio and they're getting instructions there. You know, you go up and report a murder, and that they're not there to do that. There is this robot there, and they will blindly carry out those instructions. Like, so if you can get down to any of the fracking sites or any of the protest things where the police are rolling out, and just look at how the police are behaving. It's an eye-opener. I never believed, like, you know, that they could be so brutal. And when you study what they get away with, over 8,000 deaths in custody since 1967, and not a single prosecution. They can kill people in the cells, they can kill people on the streets, they can shoot you dead and get away with it because they're a corporation. They'll just cover it up. They're just functioning for profit. Go on.
Sorry, they were just mentioning on UK Column today how people were noticing a change and a disturbing change in the behaviour of police recently. We're just pointing that out today.
Brian Gary said they acted in an unnatural way, and I was like, I actually said, unnatural way, they always acted in.
If you go onto my YouTube channel, Steve Spy, you'll see tons of video footage there of absolute brutality, women, children being assaulted, like, you know. We've got one of the cases on Barton Moss there where one of the inspectors has sexually assaulted one of the 15-year-olds on site. It's on video, like, you know, they believe they can do absolutely anything and get away with it. I spent a bit of time now challenging the police because I'm not happy. Like, you know, I rolled out Officer 666 on April the 1st on Barton Moss. Like, I thought. And where I got the idea from was, I went to Swinton Police Station, and there was a guy rolled up and he had, like, a pig mask on, a fluorescent jacket, an American police hat, like, you know. I said, that's funny, that, like, you know, the police just did not know how to react. I said, what we could do with you down on Barton Moss in the police line. He says, I've got a wooden leg. He says, I couldn't, and it was a rough road up Barton Moss, like, and they'd shove you, like, you know, so you couldn't get up and down, you know, very well, right, with a wooden leg, like, you know. So I thought, I haven't got a wooden leg, I could do that. So I got myself a pig mask. I had a fluorescent jacket. I used to run security companies. So I got myself a little toy plastic helmet, the plastic ankle. Somebody donated some plastic manacle ones, they're like that big. Plastic truncheon, like, you know. And I went up Barton Moss Road. I was dancing in front of the TAU. I was slapping people about with this plastic truncheon, like, you know. And, you know, standing in the police line, there's some really good pictures on Facebook where we stood there, like, you know, going like that with the police back, like, trying to look away, like, you know.
It's got a really horrible face, it's that pig.
Yeah.
I think it's innocent called pigs because pigs are too intelligent for police.
They're great pigs, like, I've nothing against pigs, like, you know, but it's, but it's, you know, it's I think it's a comical thing where they're referred to as that, like, you know. So I thought, like, you know, and it's just funny to see the reaction. And some of the TAU were just like, you know, pissing themselves laughing, like, you know, because they didn't find it offensive to themselves, like, you know. 666 did roll out on King Street in Manchester. Well, the Palestinians and the Jewish people, they don't eat pigs. So he was safe there. He couldn't get eaten, like, you know. But it didn't go down too well with some people, like, you know. Of it, some of them, like, you know, I was having pictures with the Jewish side and pictures with the, you know, and some of them loved it, like, you know. So there's different people find different things funny, you know. But you know, so I think it's great. I got arrested after. Was it 4 or 5 months? Now, I'd rolled out 666 on Barton Moss in front of 100 TAU, normal coppers, inspectors, like, you know. And then after Barton Moss finished, I rolled him out on the police headquarters, right, in Newton Heath. They're brand new, like, cost them £6 million to build, like, you know. So it's £6 million of our money, right, and they spent like 200 grand on artwork. I've not been able to find it yet. I've been in there. I can't find what they spent all this money on, like, you know. But we had a couple of officers come out from the headquarters, and they said, "Look, we're just here to make sure you're not impersonating a police officer." He said, "But we're looking at that jacket." It says, "Doesn't look anything like our jacket." Like. So the only thing that must have, you know, happened in their mind was, like, because I was wearing a pig mask, I must have looked like one of their guys. So anyway, you know, so after being, you know, checked over by, like, you know, and down at the HQ, you're on some major cameras, like, you know, they want to, you know, see if your uniform's, like, you know, featured in it. After that being okay, like, it was a bit of a shock to go out to Manchester Town Centre. It was on polling day. I did a little video running around the High Court. They had a terrorist hearing there. So I'm not too happy with the terrorist sort of thing. They're trying to take the Farouk's house off them. They're not convicted of terrorism. And I know the whole terrorism thing's bogus anyway, like, you know, but to try to make a family homeless on the basis of it, like, you know, is annoying. So we did a little dance outside the High Court, and then Boris, who we were filming with, he said, "Oh, we should get to the polling site." And I could see the head of the anti-terrorist squad, because we had a look at them in court, and like, oh, you know, there were people pointing and saying, like, you know.
I saw that video recently, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So he clocked 666, and then we went over to town hall, and, like, you know, and this copper, that went viral, like, you know, because they came over and said, "You're impersonating police." Look, it says "police officer" on your helmet. I said, "No, it doesn't."
It's just still on the bottom, isn't it?
Yeah, it does, yeah. Yeah, but it's a toy manufactured helmet. It just say "police" at the top, like, you know. So I've scratched that out now, like, you know, just in case. But unbelievable, at the bottom, like, you know, so that the company producing the toy hat wasn't making toy hats that looked like police officer. They put OFF, no I, CER, so it's officer, right? You know, so it's a different spelling, like, you know. So it didn't actually read what he thought it was reading. He just read what he wanted to say. They kept me like about 12 hours in the station. I had a barrister down, a solicitor, and a full-blown barrister, like, you know, and he was laughing. And we had a chat, like, you know, and. We only spent a couple of minutes. We were chatting about all different things, all the fracking, you know, thing, like, you know, and we spent a couple of minutes on the actual case that he was there for. And he says "You can say something or you can't say." He says, "The case is going nowhere," like, you know. So the minute Boris was live streaming, so it was straight up, like, there was no deleting that footage. I copied it onto my YouTube channel just to make sure, and that went viral all around the world, in Canada and places like that, like, you know. So you can find stories about all over the world. If you type in "pig officer" or "pig police" or, you know, anything like that, it'll fire up on, like, you know, on the pictures and that. But that went viral, and I started getting calls like, we want to drop the charges. And when I agreed to meet them the next day, I said, "Well, I want my uniform back." they kept my uniform. I said, "Well, you know, so you can drop the charge, but I want the uniform back as well." And they came around, like, with me with the uniform, big bag with the uniform. Like, it says, "I'm sorry, it's a bit creased." It says, "We've been round 5 times, but you're not been in." So they seemed in a pretty hurry to, like, you know, come and drop the charges. Like, they bailed me for 2 months, like, and they dropped it in, you know, two days, like, you know. So, like, you know, I thought I'm not seeing my uniform for a while, like, you know. So I ordered you know, so I've got a spare one, like, on standby now for next time, just to sort of take the uniform if that happens. But that was the second arrest I've had this year. I'll be suing them for that one once I've gone through the complaint. The courts in this country like to see that you've exhausted all routes, like, so you go through the complaints procedure, they find themselves not guilty of any wrongdoing because, oh, it was all a big mistake. They'll find an excuse, whatever it is. Then I'll sue them and hopefully get some money. But it's not justice. You're not getting justice. That's not their money. It's not coming out of their pocket. That's our money that we put in, like the people again. So in the end, you know, even if you manage to do everything that you want, you're not getting justice out of the system. You're just getting a few quid, and you're back into their role, their corporate, like, in a paper. And they want people thinking that, you know, a few quid, like, you know, the money isn't important. You know, so, you know, so if they think that I'm going to sue them and go and then go and sit back and, like, you know, wait for the money, like, no, that's not what it's about. Right? It's about highlighting what's going on and getting people aware and changing the system. Right? It's not good that they can murder people and there's a few quid to keep quiet. Right? No, we're not happy with it. We're not happy. It's time to change. But that was the second arrest. The first arrest was in January. They arrested me. I was filming Colin, who was getting violently arrested. He was shoving his arms up his back like there was 3 big TAU officers. And as I stood there filming, one of the TAU officers turned around. They came towards me. I'm there in an observer bib. I'm holding a camera. And he just grabbed me, picked me up, threw me in front of a lorry, and then another officer picked me up, and, like, you know, I carried on filming. And then one of the officers, like, came up and he played me. He says, "You've been drinking, you." I said, "I haven't." I said, "I've had tea this morning." He says, "You just told me you've been drinking." And I said, "No, I've just told you I've had tea this morning."
Oh, that was you.
Yeah, that was me.
I saw that.
Yeah. That went viral, like, you know. So he made up the story. Said, "Well, you've been driving. I've seen you in your blue Mercedes and that." Well, I didn't have a car that day. I didn't have any car keys. It broken down, like, you know, the previous day. So I put it into my mate who runs a garage, like, you know. And I got a lift to the site. I'd spent the night on site. So, you know, there's no way on earth that they could prove, like, you know, what they were suggesting, like, you know. So what he did was, me, and obviously you can see the video, a lot of people have seen it. I bump into people from Poland and Russia, and they've all seen it. It's totally viral. Millions of people have seen this because he's clearly making up as he goes along. And one thing he says to me is, "Do you consent to the breath test?" He got these other officers in. I said, "No, I don't consent." The whole system is based on consent. So if they say that to me, "Do you consent?" No. If it's the law and you've got the power to impose something on it, you don't need my consent. So I said, "No, I'm not consenting." They arrested me, stuck in the cell, you know, cells, like, you know, and, like, you know, they asked me to provide the sample. I didn't do that. You know. Got to court, and they dropped charges straight away.
It looks like filming at a protest could get you thrown into jail for drunk driving. Confused? So was Dr. Stephen Pears as he filmed at an anti-fracking rally in Manchester. He was allegedly pushed down to the ground by a police officer who then proceeded to accuse him of being drunk.
Are you drunk? You've been drinking this morning? You've been drinking this morning?
No, I've not.
You've been drinking this morning?
No, I've not.
You've been drinking?
I've had tea.
You've arrived in your car?
No, I've not.
You've arrived in your car this morning? You've had a drink, haven't you? You've had a drink this morning. Where's your car? Been drinking this morning.
Despite Mr. Pears's claims that all he'd had was a cup of tea and the fact that his car wasn't anywhere nearby, Sergeant David Kehoe carried on, even threatening arrest.
You've been detained at this moment in time. Have you got this lad that's coming in the car this morning, I smell on his breath, he's already admitted to having a drink.
No, I've got it on film.
Yeah,
I've not had a drink at all. I've had tea this morning, officer.
Dr. Pears refused to be breathalyzed, repeating that he had not been drinking and that he was simply a pedestrian in a public place. As the footage shows, the policeman even tried to rally some of his colleagues against the protester.
We've got 2 staff here.
I'm a pedestrian.
They're going to go through the drink drive procedure with you.
I'm a pedestrian on a public footpath.
Okay, short officers here.
I'm a pedestrian on a public footpath.
Stephen Pearce was charged, but the case was dropped as it got to court due to insufficient evidence. Mr. Pearce posted the video on YouTube, claiming the whole thing is a ridiculous, trumped-up charge and that the policeman was trying to frame him. A Greater Manchester police spokesman said that the complaint has now gone to the Independent Police Complaints Commission. And, well, we know how well they do their job, considering they recently had to apologise for wrongly claiming Mark Duggan had shot at police. Oops.
Suing him for that incident in January, like, that went viral. They've arrested me again in, like, a pig massacre, and that's gone viral, so, they might be getting a bit bored of, like, the video, because it's very, very bad press, and every incident like that, so I want them to arrest me again, make themselves look silly, because it generates publicity and gets people looking at it and say, like, so I think the January, it's called Teagate, because all the people on site knew I'd been drinking tea, like I've been around, so they nicknamed it Teagate. Well, they had a few gates, like, obviously they're copying the Watergate thing. It makes me laugh when people say, like, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. Well, I know who came up with the phrase conspiracy theory. It was Richard Nixon talking about the Watergate scandal. It wasn't a theory, it was a fact, like, So I think I've exhausted quite a few topics there for now, like, so yeah, if you have a little break and if anybody wants to have a quick question and answer session or anything.
Okay. Yeah.
I was just chatting about the direct debit clawbacks. They're fairly recent. I've got switched on to direct debit clawbacks, so like get onto that if you're not aware of it.
I'm onto that. I'm onto it.
Get it? Yeah. Everybody I've told everybody at my group in Manchester, like, and they're all getting money back, like,
Could you? I'm sorry, I missed the bit in the informal discussion. Could you? Obviously, I don't expect you to kind of repeat it all. And I wonder if you could just give a brief introduction to the idea of how that works.
The direct debit clawback.
Yeah.
What is that?
Well, it's a facility in place with a direct debit. Like, obviously, direct debits, they can come to your account and take any money they like, right? So there is a facility in place, like, so if they do take that money, right, and you dispute it, you've got to give it back.
Sorry, say that again.
If they take the money, take too much money, right, and you raise that issue with the bank, right, the direct debit system's not the bank's, it's an independent system, and they've got to claw it back. It's the law.
Who has?
Right? The banks claw it back for you, right? Because it was taken out of your account, right, when you didn't owe it, because you dispute it. The direct debit allows them to just come and, like, grab a massive money out of your account, right? Who says, where's the paper that said that you actually owed that? Right? So if they take too much, you have the right under law to claw it back for 6 years.
6 years?
Yes.
Right, well,
I've not paid any direct debit. So I'd love to be doing it. I've not paid anything by direct. I hate direct debits. But everybody I've told that's had these awful things, you can claw it back, and they've ended up with, like, Wesley Army got 3,500. He went down to his mate, he's a financial advisor, like, he was sat there with his cup of coffee on his laptop, and Wesley says, like, oh, I've got 3,500 paid into my account. His financial advisor took a cup of coffee out all over his laptop, and he says, "You did what? You got the money back." So some people just don't know about it.
How long does that generally take from your initial complaint?
It's immediate, isn't it? They have to give you a full refund immediately. Yeah.
It can be quite quick. Some can get it done straight away. It goes back 6 years. They've got to keep the records for 6 years. So you don't need all your bank statements and things like that. They've got the records. It's up to them. Even if your account is closed, you can go and claw that money back. Have it paid into a different account.
So we've got an analyst PPI business. Payment protection insurance.
No, I've not looked at that. I take the view it's a bit of a scam, like,
It's all a scam.
Yeah. The whole banking system's a huge fraud, like, so, they're just running an angle, like, I think it's to give the illusion, like, that if they do something wrong, that you can get it corrected. Right? It's all a massive fraud. If they corrected the system, like, they'd have to disband all the banks and, like, all the.
Well, yeah, there are people who suggested that the banks should be abolished.
Yeah. If we have one court ruling in this country saying, like, the mortgage is a fraud, like, it would just collapse overnight, like, you know. So I think things like the PPI thing, like, you know, they're like, oh, well, we'll give this out and that'll make it look.
I think it's changing gradually because they've put allegedly this £4 billion of the stuff that we think of as money aside, and you've got all this peer-to-peer lending, you've got things like Bitcoin, e-money, and then crowdfunding and so forth.
I'd be careful with the Bitcoin and things like that. I think.
Well, yeah, but
I
you've got
think
people who are beginning to sort of operate without the bank.
They're interesting, as in you can trade, like, you know, separately, like, you know, to the currencies, like, you know. But I wouldn't go putting, you know, thousands in there.
No.
I'd use it as a day-to-day sort of trading sort of thing, like, you know. But it's
like
not a big investment.
Like you were talking about sort of trading amongst ourselves. I mean, it raises the question really, what is money? And David Graeber, the anthropologist, has written an excellent book called Debt, the first founder, and he poses the same question, you know, what is money? And then he says essentially that money is what you say it is. Peanuts, grains of rice.
Well, it is. I mean, there's nothing that stops us bartering, like, you know, you know, there's things like the Bradbury pound and things like, you know, which are, you know, I think they'd be great things to bring in, like, you know, but, like, you know, we've got all sorts of forms of, like, you know, things like, we've got coins out there that are in silver and, like, you know, gold and, like, you know, so we can trade things with more value, like, you know, but I think the way that the world's being pushed where, you know, food is going to be, like, you know, America now, the vast regions that are dry, they're not growing enough food to feed America. The food price this year, like, you know, later in the year, next year, is going to go through the roof. They're manipulating this. They're controlling the food. They're controlling the water.
Food, basic staples are commodities. You know, wheat, grain, and so forth.
Yeah.
That's what they trade.
So the things that have true value and you know, to us as human beings are the things we need to survive, and that's what they're trying to control.
It's what we say it is. Because I've suggested before that, you know, everybody sort of thinks gold is the ultimate.
It's King Midas, isn't it? What happened to King Midas?
I can't remember.
But
I mean, if you go to the middle of the Mongolian desert and you offer somebody a nomad some gold, he could probably say, well, what's this stuff? It's not worth anything to me.
It's only given a value, like, you know, and
by the markets.
You know, so yeah, it's fine, like, you know, but it's another manipulated commodity. So I think it's all right, like, if you want something, you know, pretty to look at, gold and that, like, you know, but you're not going to be able to eat it when food goes scarce.
Exactly.
Right? You're not going to be able to drink it. It's not going to help you survive. Right? Who's going to give up their water and food for this shiny bit of, you know? Yeah. It's got value now, but I'm not overly confident, like, you know. And if you look at the price of gold and things now, like, you know, it's
manipulation.
It's too much. They're manipulating the price.
Question, can I ask, do you have any views on regards to the energy we give out, how we feel about things can affect different things in this world? With regards to positive energy or negative energy, how we're feeling and how they might feed off the negative energy with regards to the fear?
I go on the fracking sites, and you're around very warm people, and, like, you know, when they maybe hug each other, like, you know, and, like, you know, occasionally you get someone coming on, like, who's just doesn't feel right, doesn't fit in, and it's not one person that picks up on it. It's like everybody sort of, no, that doesn't feel right, like, you know, if they're overly hostile, like, you know. Obviously, I studied jiu-jitsu for many years, like, you know, and like, you know, as a woman felt self-defense, and I take the opinion now that we shouldn't be fighting at all. Right? To look at things in a conflict way, like, you know, I think, like, you know, everybody on a personal level needs to, like, you know, we need to feel more love towards each other, right? Because people, like, you know, just through their aura, it goes out all around us. Like, we're picking up on what people are feeling. Like, you know, if you're feeling hateful, nasty, you know, greedy, and that's all things that were affected. And I think our reality is based on what, like, we create our own reality. Right? So if we're behaving in a way that's, like, you know, selfish and, like, you know, and, you know, it affects our surroundings, and, like, you know, and people come to you, like, you know, so if I watch it on when I'm in Manchester town centre, you see these people rushing by, like, you know, they're swearing on the phone, banging, you know, road rage on the road and that, like, you know, and, like, you know, well, nothing good's going to come, you know, of doing all that, like, you know, but
given that, though, there are some people that say that the more energy that we actually focus on things like the fracking, all of this stuff, and I'm not saying I agree with it particularly, but some people say that the more energy you give to that the more you're actually creating a
Is that just happening anyway?
Universe, etc., etc.
I want to go at these people because basically they are providing an excuse for people who are saying do nothing.
Quite
It's not
possibly.
about
Quite possibly.
No, because if you've got something like fracking, right? Fracking is like poisoning the earth, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Right?
absolutely. Yeah.
So, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to go at it with a positive mindset, saying we can win, bring people together, a positive feeling for the planet, or are you going to go into the kind of mindless avoidance that these people who suggest this want to do?
I think we're back to the CPR where if you ignore something, you give your consent.
Silence is acquiescence.
Yeah.
Very hard.
So my feeling is that the people who put this out, I've came across a lot of this over the last few years on the internet, and I do feel that it is
New age bollocks.
it's a distraction. It's a distraction.
It's like, you know, I've learned a lot through going on those sites and meeting those people. You know, so you're not there 24 hours a day, like, you know, battling trucks and doing actions and things like that. You're there meeting in a social group, associating with people, sharing your opinions, like we're meeting here. It's like, you know, and you can have large groups on that. Some of the camps that have been settled now, like, you know, thousands of people all meeting up and all sharing the same thing and all trying to figure out how to work together just to change the system. They know what's wrong. They all know what's wrong. Right? But, you know, how do we deal with it? It looks like an immense thing. It looks like an unwinnable battle, right? And that's if you start thinking that's where they win.
Yeah.
Right? I can't do anything, so I'll go and watch the television. I'll, you know, go and suck in all this propaganda and do nothing. We need to get out on the streets. Right? You know, they're not reporting it when people are getting out, and they're in the hundreds of thousands. Right? The controlled media, like, you know, and I think it's a crime, like, you know, if there was, like, you know, a huge thing going out, you know, in the streets, hundreds of thousands of people marching through London, I might be visiting that. I'd be wanting to know, like, you know, if there's going to be delays and stuff. They're not reporting. That's a crime. They should be reporting it. They're not reporting it because they don't want more people to join in. Right? So if they don't want it, I think it's the right thing to do. Get out on the street, and just do it peacefully, like, you know, show your opposition, like, you know. I was in Thailand a few years back, and the Red Shirts had a demonstration there, and it was an amazing thing to see. 30,000 people camped out in the middle of Bangkok. It was so well organised. It was financed. It was obviously controlled because they had electric generators. They had showers. Like, there was food. Like, you know, I was walking around. I was offered free food, and, like, you know, and they just occupied the financial district of Bangkok. All the the banks, the posh hotels, everything, and shut it down. You know, if people did that, just got out on the streets, say, you know, in the major cities, and just sat down and said, well, no, we're not moving them, and block the financial things, it would grind to a halt very quickly. They'd have to address the situation. It's all vibration, like, you know, if you're vibrating at a higher level, like, you know, all the control systems based on low level vibration, feeling bad. It's a fear-based system. Another part of the control system is guilt. Right?
Yes.
When you're feeling guilty, when you're feeling fearful, like, you know, you're vibrating at a very, very, very low level. It's recognising that and being able to just switch to a higher level. You know, and, you know, there's all sorts of ways to do that through meditation. Like, you know, and music is great. Like, you know, anything that, you know, sort of, you know, gets you to
It's like when we look at things like the Olympics opening ceremony, where we all know it's still Illuminati symbology, but a lot of people get a lot from that and they feel good because they're watching this and they feel this unity. And I'm torn out as to how to think, personally.
I think things like the Freemasons and, like, the control system, the Illuminati, the way they control things, like, you know, it's through these ceremonies, like this repetitious thing, like, you know, and, it's all part of their control system, like, you know. So I think, it's, you know, if things like that make you feel good, but they don't appeal to me.
I can draw you a bit on that. Is this an evolution in the control matrix from the off? It's just been an evolution to this, where they've got us in lockdown now? Or is this carefully constructed by, I can't even call them people, but people obviously have not got because humanity is based on ethics, isn't it? We're based on looking after our family, ourselves, our community, whereas they seem to be completely based on control and profit. Now, I want to get your take on it. Is this an evolution that's just happened, or is this something that's been constructed by things we can't even comprehend?
It's a paradigm shift. it's a shifting of consciousness, like, and I think the universe itself goes through cycles, right? You know, and we're moving into a cycle. We all remember back from the 60s, it was the dawning of the age of Aquarius. I was born in the 60s, and I think it was the dawning, right? When we've reached maturity, like, you know, that's the age of Aquarius. That's like, you know, when we're waking up and things are changing, like, you know, and people are realising. I think John Lennon put it very well in his, like, Imagine, like, you know, and you know, all the things that are used to divide us, and again we do this current thing that we're doing, like with the King Street matter, like, you know, you've got people there arguing, like waving flags, right? You know, you see two sides waving these flags that have been made by the control system, about borders that have been drawn by the control system, about rockets that are being fired over by rich people doing it, like, you know, they're creating these sort of conflicts, like, you know, I'm out, I'm helping the protest, like, you know, but we're joining together as a people, like, you know, and it's peaceful, right, and it's objecting, like, to the control system. Right? Not everybody's, like, you know, up to speed on you know, because they're still waving these flags, like, you know, but it'll come. Right? The more people, like, you know, we just need to get together as groups and get the word out there and get them switched onto that. I spend a bit of time, you know, talking with people and trying to get them realising this, like, you know, right? But it's difficult for people when you've got people dying, right, over country flags and areas of land, like, you know, we're human beings. We shouldn't be drawing these lines, like, you know, we should be working together as human beings. And if you want to go to whatever they call the country, Israel, it's land, it's our land, right? Like, we should be just a free go, and, like, you know, if we got rid of the controlling system, we could just travel anywhere, right? It needn't be expensive, like, you know. They got us hooked on, like, oil, which has been, like, the controlling system, like, you know, for the last 100 years. They know we're figuring out the oil scam, right? So they're moving on. The next thing is water. That'll be the next big scam, right, where they plan to get all their money. We need to stop that. That's an imperative thing.
Can I pick you up at that point, because about water, because you mentioned in the first one about dealing with water charges, I think, if I put it in the most general term, and you said...
Just don't pay them, there's no law. They can't disconnect you. Water's a human right. Don't pay them. Stop financing them.
Yeah. Is it, surely there's more, you know, you kind of might need to do in terms of...
Just don't pay them. Just don't acknowledge them after 2 months or so. Like, they'll just start sending bills to the occupier. Right. You know then that they're not, you know, doing any serious chasing of it. You know, I've got.
Water's an easy one, isn't it? Actually,
they've never really bothered me, the water. Right, you know, I want to deal with their thing, you know, so like the council with the bailiffs, like, you know, they were sending me bailiff letters, and I was writing back, I said, you sent me a bailiff letter, but it's come from your officers, the council officers. Can you give me the council's registration as a bailiff and give me the, you know, liability? And they don't have any of it, right? So they instructed a proper bailiff. So I wrote to that bailiff when they sent me a letter, and I said, well, I'm disputing this debt, like, you know, and if you come and chase this debt from me, you'd be guilty of an offence under Article 3, Section 15 of the Terrorism Act 2000, and you'd be liable to arrest. And they didn't want to come round and discuss it. You attach a fee schedule. I have a standard letter that I give out to people, and it sort of does them all, really. Like, you know, you can challenge them all on the same things. Like, there's certain things that you get in that, you know, you can apply to them all. Dispute everything. That's the first thing. Right? I dispute what they claim is owed, and dispute their charges. Dispute everything. Charging them, please do not send any further letters, do not phone me, do not text me, do not pay any visits. You can only communicate to an email. They can't charge you for an email. Right? So I give them an email to communicate to. And the main one there is, please provide proof that the debt is owed. Right? Obviously, if it's a gas or electric bill, please provide a copy of the contract as per the 1974 Consumer Credit Act. It's any bill that you can pay by instalments. Right, you need a contract under that Act. Right? Please supply details of your registration with the Office of Fair Trading, your consumer credit licence number, also your public liability insurance details. I don't want to see them. I just want them running around digging up paperwork, like, you know, doing some work. right, turning the situation around. Just a minute and I'll do away with this. Please supply me with a copy of your complaints procedure. A lot of debt collectors, things like that, they've got to have a complaints procedure, they just skip that step. Right? Get everything off them, like, try and pin them down. And then apply a fee schedule. I apply £50 a letter, £250 a phone call, and £500 for all other methods of communication. And I give that out at the meetings, and everybody uses these, sends them in, like, and it seems to be like a really good template that they struggle to deal with.
Would we be able to put
You're a
an
spell?
email for us or something? Or
It's on my webpage.
Is it?
Yeah, I've got it.
Can I just have a
I might play backups because when I
Is
was.
it similar to what Get Out of Debt Free do as well?
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah, I'm sure they've all got template letters. I think we shouldn't stick to standard templates too much, like But I like that one because nobody's come up with a good argument, and it's and it seems to do them all because it's asking the key ones, like, and the key thing is dispute everything, get the proof, right, and then give them a fee schedule, right? Make sure they know. And I've had apology letters when I send that to debt collectors. Or we've crossed it off, like I'm not worried about me credits and scoring and things like that. But they panic and because this is what the rich people do. They don't pay. You certainly are, and we have a little joke, I'll throw it into a meeting every so often, like when we're out on these sites, and there's been loads of people arrested and people glued themselves to railings and things, and then I throw it in and I say, I think the time's finally come now. Should start a petition.
So what I was going to say was, as opposed to petitioning, the most important thing we can do is withdraw our funds from the system.
Withdraw the funds, forget about petitions, don't vote, when you register for voting, they get so much money per person registered on the voter. You're giving them consent to run this daft system. It's not a democracy, it's fake, it's fixed. Anything they had a cat competition in the House of Commons, and they fixed the result, if they're going to fix that, they're going to rig the big stuff, So, if it can be rigged, it is rigged, right? They're not running a fair system, they think we're stupid, and they'll have far more respect, for everybody when they stop paying, because you've suddenly woken up and you're not compliant, you've got far.
Yeah, so sorry, initially with the council tax thing, before you get to the debt collector, you quote this section 50.
That's my way of dealing with it. You don't need to deal that way. That's the approach I took, because I thought it was funny. They are terrorists. They run around creating these terrorist organisations to scare us, when they're the actual terrorists.
Yeah.
So I like to point out the bleeding obvious to them, and point out that they could be arrested. I know they're terrorists. They could be arrested for that. If enough people switched on to that and said it's got to be a worry, isn't it? We had one chap on one of the marches, and this inspector had assaulted someone, and so he said, right, you're under arrest. It wasn't going to work because there was 100 police officers there. They're not going to let their inspector be carted off, But this inspector, he was so flustered and he was running away basically. It put the fear of God into him, and I think that's what it needs. The people are waking up. You're going to be arrested. You're going to be put on trial. You're not getting away with this anymore. The judge that Roger Hayes arrested, he never worked again. They know what they're doing is wrong. They know it's corrupt. Once you start pointing this out to them, we stand outside GMP HQ. We've got big banners. When I was arrested with the pig mask in Manchester Town Centre, we had a banner there, with a picture of Peter Fahey. Peter Fahey is now under investigation for gross misconduct in relation to a minor that he sent in on an operation to a well-known paedophile in Manchester. With conduct like that, and it's a whistleblower from Manchester Police that's come out and disclosed all that. Sweeney is deputy, he's under investigation for missing body parts related to the victims of Harold Shipman. These people are into bizarre sort of things and it's gonna come out. We just need to keep we're chinking away at them these groups that are forming like the Frackers, the Palestinians, find these groups and bring them together.
So you're from Manchester. What do you make of Charlie Beach?
I was putting a video up earlier. He was filmed yesterday on outside Cadem. And it was the day before yesterday when somebody pointed out to me the Ian Tomlinson video that he recorded quite a few years ago, where he was giving the official police line. All the protesters were throwing bottles and the police behaved respectfully and they pushed forward. And it was all the official line, which we now know is a load of rubbish. Right? So it looks very much like he's either paid for them or they've got some pressure on him. The fact that he was outed by his girlfriend a while back for sleeping with a 15-year-old, right? And he's still got that video up on his site,
Can I just say, don't you think that the years that we spent kind of talking about this guy are complete distraction in some ways?
It's a distraction, but
to me it's so obvious. It's just like this guy, everyone's
I didn't know about all this. This was news to me.
Yeah.
So nobody told me. So I think it's important to in groups. He is trying to infiltrate these groups, so people shouldn't be aware. So.
Just get over it and get on, move on.
But the thing is, Lisa, there is some people that still post his videos on Facebook like he's some kind of new age hero.
I mean, I used to listen to him when he first did the law police thing. I used to think he was
Well,
great.
I watched a couple of his videos.
Did you have a question?
Truth juice.
Did you have a question?
Sorry.
Yeah, what mortgages? Now that's a hard one to do.
It is obviously we were out on the eviction. Well, 666 was out, and they stopped one eviction. So it's a difficult one, and the courts are not going to help us on this because if they rule in our favour, so we need to approach it from a different angle.
Do you know how to do secured loan because it's on the house? We are absolutely. We got £10,000 out as a loan, and it's now 13,000.
13.
Yeah.
So it's creeping up for some reason. When you
It's
say
interesting, isn't it?
well, yeah, I mean all the religions, like the Jewish religion, the Muslim religion, the Christian religion, they're all against this charging money, in interest. On it, because Jesus kicked the money lenders out of the temple because it creates an element of society that benefits society, not one iota. They're just making money throughout. And those are the people running the system. So it's corrupt. We need to. So it's a mistake getting into their system with a mortgage in the first place and getting these loans and agreeing to pay this interest. But if you look at the actual loan agreements and things like that, and certainly if it's paid by direct debit, you've got the opportunity to claw it back. But this is something Roger Hayes is working, night and day on this, with a class action that is going, challenging the mortgage, so we're trying to bring the system down, but
the thing about mortgage, one of the things about mortgages, and in fact all this stuff that we call money is that the banks just invent money, they invent financial products just out of nowhere.
It's fractional reserve banking. It's a corrupt system. It can't possibly.
It is, yeah.
Yes.
So they actually take you. I mean, it's not a legally binding contract to start with. They accept it as a negotiable instrument. They accept it for value. They use it as a check, effectively, and then they alter it. They convert it into a security instrument, and you sign it as a deed. And if you look at the Law Property Act, I can't remember the number of section now, but if somebody alters a deed, that's an offence. And that's what they do. They convert it by converting it into a security instrument, and that's where it's proving the whole thing. Really,
they're giving themselves power of attorney in the documents and things like that. So we're getting.
But then, if you read it, there's a good quote on the Bank of England actually, and they explain. They actually say in so many words. Lord Adair Turner actually says that banks. Lend money by creating deposits in the name of the borrower, and there's another explanation in another paper on the Bank of England where they say that they create a deposit and they use a deposit to pay for the goods and services, which includes your house. So they create the deposit in your name, Karen, and that goes to pay your house, and then they lumber you with the debt. Well, that's the double entry bookkeeping. That's the sleight of hand.
Dealing with it though, and getting around and getting that money back is if you do it, the banks aren't going to be happy about it.
We have put it in dispute.
What I'm working on you can actually make a case. You can make a financial product out of a case or a claim. And because if you actually look into how banks create financial products, that's where I'm going.
Again, the court systems like are run by them, like So
one thing about the courts is if when you go to court, you approach the banks to sort of borrow in inverted commas money. They have you jumping through hoops. They want to know every little thing. But as soon as you ask them for information about where the money comes from, what it looks like and so on.
So we're all divided, what we need is groups that come together, like a whole village of people, and say, well, we're not adopting that thing, we've got our own way of trading and, making food and, trading this and, build these structures, because that's the way to do it.
But there are those of us who've got more experience and there's those of us who understand this stuff more, which is precisely, as Lisa says, why we need to be coming together. So that those of us who are not so experienced or knowledgeable, can learn from those of us who are. That's why it's important for it. Well,
the sites are doing workshops on things like the protesting and things like that. I think it's important to get lots of skills out there and be able to get more people switched on to things to tackle. Obviously, we've done a lot of work on the legal side, protest law and things like that. We're getting observers out to all over the country, to get people switched onto that, because people just assume that the police are there to help them and have authority and things like that. And I had a funny incident today where I came from court. John was arrested last Saturday, and they start bail conditions on him, not to go into Manchester town centre, which is, for a start, against his Article 10 and 11 human rights. To attend the protest and it's clearly trying to stop him there. So the bail conditions were lifted. The judge agreed that they were agreed to his human rights. It's not been applied at other courts around the country. We don't always get the courts in our favour. But we left court and we went straight to the protest site, and the police approached and said, "We believe we've got bail conditions." He's been with him in court. He's got them all lifted. He said, "Well, you're detained." I said, "All right, you're detained. What law are you detaining him under?" And he went, I haven't got a clue. Didn't know what power he had to detain him, so I'll post that video later. It's a funny one, But they're assuming powers that they don't have.
So it's about our knowledge then, and what we can.
Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
Learn it, So when they first went down there, the protesters, the police were slapping Section 14s on them. Well, if you don't know what Section 14 and how it's applied, you're just going to assume they must have that power. It's incorrectly applied. We had it stopped. We had a solicitor's firm write to the chief constable, said improperly applying Section 14 because it's only supposed to be used in cases where there's a threat of violence, and there was none of that in this case. And this is the video that we've got to prove that. And we backed it up. And they stopped the Section 14s.
What's the Section 14?
It's a restriction of protest, so they can restrict the time that you're protesting, and they can restrict the area. So say down there we've got two protest groups, so they're saying the Israeli side, you go over there, Palestinian side over there, behind these barriers, and keep them totally separate. But that's only to be applied in time of threat of violence. There's no threat of violence down there. They're abusing their powers, we've made the people, even the Israeli side, are now switched onto that, and they're questioning. I think it's great. All sides should question the powers that the police are applying on them. We need to question the authority.
There's a common law offence called abuse of power, abuse of public office.
Malfeasance in a public office. I'm sure Peter Fye, and I could name quite a few other officers that are guilty of that, and they should be taken to court. And there's commercial liens that can be applied. We're looking at that to apply that to certainly in the murder of Anthony Granger. That's one where a commercial lien should be applied directly onto the chief constable as an individual, not representing in the health and safety violation. He's representing the corporation. He's called a corporate soul. it's just a nonsense. Like, you know, he should be on trial properly. They're the criminals. You know, when they're saying we're this, we're in this, you know, ludicrous system, right, where they're virtually making us fight each other for, you know, bits of paper, right? You know, things that, you know, if we weren't paying all this, imagine if you didn't pay any bills, like, you know. Imagine if you could run your car on water. The money that you'd have, like, you'd live quite comfortably, like, you know, you could give food and water away, you know, you shouldn't be paying water rates. Water is a human right. Why are they charging us for it? The way I look at that is it's substandard. What they're, you know, I distill.
It's poisonous water anyway.
I distill all my water at home, like, you know, when you see the gunk that's left over after you know, well, I'm glad I'm not drinking that. You know, and you know, I went to Tesco not so long back, like for lemonade for my kids, like, you know, and it's like I looked at every single brand of lemonade, and they all contained aspartame. Aspartame has 92 different side effects on the body, one of which is cancer. So there's people out there, like, you know, and I see people all the time drinking the diet cokes and that, like, you know, with this nasty chemical in, and once you look into it and understand, like, you know, I've never worried about my weight and things like that, so I've never looked at diet stuff and do that, you know, I've never even thought about it, like, you know, but, you know, after the Sony case and, like, you know, all these things, the health things, like, all the cancer cures, like the cancer, somebody stopped me in Manchester the other day, and I was smiling, I was laughing about this photo I just had. I took a picture of the police, and he'd just taken a can of beer off this drunk, and he was stood there like that with a can of beer. So I got that, and I put that on the net, like, you know, and you know, so I was laughing to myself on the way, looking at me the picture of this, like, you know, and I showed it around all you know, all the police liaisons and that, like, and she pulled me over. She said, "Oh, you're smiling, like," and it was like a cancer charity, like. I said, "Oh, no, you're being lied to on a vast scale. Like, we know the cures for cancer." You know, and she's going, "Oh, well, we do, like, you know, for incurable. There's no incurable cancers. They all can be cured, and very, very, very quickly. They're just covering up all the cancer cures. They want to sell us drugs. It's a multi-billion-pound industry. If they announce the cure tomorrow, and it's been announced quite a few times. There was one in Canada, like, last year. So if you Googled Canada drug, and it was a cheap drug that's already on the market. They found has, like, you know, excellent cancer curing properties, but it can't be remade. You know, it's already patented, so they can't redo it and sell it at a high price. So don't tell anybody. Right? Just don't put it in the news. It's on the net. You can go and find it and find the actual drug and that. Like, you know, but there's loads of them. Right? Cannabis is the big one. Like Abraham Lincoln used to drink cannabis oil. I don't think you should smoke it. I think you should, like, you get it, turn it into oil and drink it, because it's like it's a cure-all. Right? It cures lots of different things in the body, like, you know. So why make that particular plant illegal? I don't think you should make any plant illegal.
That's mine.
But you can drink alcohol, which definitely does damage, or cigarettes, like, which they have nasty chemicals too, like, to make, you know, cause damage. Like, you're not banning those. Like, why pick on cannabis? I was in court today actually, and John was getting his bail lifted, but the cases that were going before him, like, you know, people growing cannabis, you know, harangued and harassed for it, like, it's a plan.
So essentially, Steve, it's also obvious. It's like, why are we taking this crap? Isn't it? It's also obvious.
And if you looked at all and, like, it's sad, like, you know, because I think the little old ladies sat at home there with those pennies, like, weighing up whether I should put money on the gas meter or keep warm or buy food, like, you know, they're picking on the weak and the fragile, right? And that's just nasty. And if you let it get to you and, you know, get angry and, like, you know, you're playing into their hands, right? It's not, you know, we've got to laugh at the system a bit because it's so horrible and, like, you know, so manipulative, and it's been in place for so long. We've got to laugh and say, well, you've played that for a while, but no, we're on to you now. And, you know, people deal with that and, like, you know, do it with a higher level of vibration, right? And it's not go out and kill them, right? You get this all the time, I'm going to go out and riot and do this. You can't do it that way. You're as bad as them. That justifies the way they've been running things if you sink to that level. So we've just got to vibrate at a higher level, laugh at them a bit, and you know, I'd get the Queen and, like, stick her behind the counter at McDonald's or something, give her, like, you know, put them in the same position that we've been in, like, you know, make them live on a minimum wage.
If we do, which I think and I hope we do, eventually take these people out, will we find out that they're actually taking orders from something or someone else, and it would make it, I don't know, well, I don't know what would happen after that. Could I get your take on that?
Well, I think the orders are obviously coming from somewhere, like, you know, I think you probably hinted at an alien thing or something, like, you know, and when you think about it, it's not, you know, when I meet people out on the street, they don't want to fight each other, like most, like, you know, they get a few people that are riled up and, like, you know, under the pressures that we're under, that, like, you know, get this hostile attitude. But generally, people on the whole don't want to fight and do these things, like, you know. So I'd like to think the people in power, like, you know, they're not normal, like, you know, they must be manipulated, like, you know, and, like, you know, they're doing things that are out and out evil, right? So, you know, and obviously you look at things like the wicked music industry, where all this, you know, Satanist symbol, they seem to be worshipping the devil, and, like, you know, and, you know, I don't go with this God devil sort of thing, like, but they definitely do with the devil thing.
They do, and they thrive off it. They thrive off
I think
that
there is a
dark
God, but I
energy.
think it's gold oil. So just do, you know, through what I've been through, like, you know, it's given me, like, you know, an impetus to fight them and sort of challenge it, like, you know. That's what everybody needs to do, like, you know. It's fair. When I first got the cape, I'd never seen it. I didn't know what a high court junction was. I didn't know how to respond. They couldn't hit with me the same stuff again, like, because I know how to do it, and I quite enjoy another battle. And that's what you've got in. Welcome the challenge. Look at it. It's not easy. It's an uphill struggle, like, you know. But, you know, we've got more power than we know. It's just reclaiming that power and, you know, being prepared to, you know, take a bit of flack, and you'll get it, like, you know. And, you know, but, you know, say if, you know, somebody comes to my door, like, you know, I've got to put them on YouTube, like, you know. I go around and do all the observing, like, people get assaulted, people getting arrested, like, you know. I've been arrested quite a few times, like, it's not a nice feeling and all that, you know. But the energy you get from, you know, just going and contributing and doing that little bit, you know, it's worth it, because you are waking people up. If everybody just did a little bit, and would just wake people up that much faster. Well, it's a worldwide agenda, the fracking one, like, you know, and obviously they've been doing it in the States, like, you know. You can see with, like, you know, the United States, they're setting up the FEMA camps, like, you know, the attempts, like, with Sandy Hook to remove, like, the guns, like, you know, from the population, like, you know, they're pushing the agendas faster in some places than other. You've got a situation in Ukraine now with Russia on the border, missiles going across, fighting, like, you know, and it's going to be a small step for them to shut the gas off. You will then have an outcry in Europe saying, oh, we've got no gas, we need to frack. And they suddenly the agenda that was banned in France and Germany and that will reignite, and they will push it there.
Yeah, why have it banned there in the first place? If you're part of a small group that can make these kind of decisions, and you have a global agenda, you have a strategy for that. I mean, none of these guys do anything without a 5 or 10 year plan. Why? What would be the strategy of banning it in one area and push it in another? Why?
They're not all powerful, like, you know. They do have, you know, opposition in that, like, you know. And if you do get it banned in one little particular, then we're all part of Europe, like, you know. It's like, you know, they can dictate this from the highest level, like, you know. So, you know, just banning it in that country, like, you know, it doesn't mean you're going to see that's going to stop the agenda. It's a planned out thing that you can do in stages. It's been done in America first, Australia, Britain, and it's a small thing where you knock it on in stages. You don't do everything in one go, right? You can have it banned and then reverse that ban the minute you go into.
Yeah, no, that's kind of what I'm meaning, is why do you think they have it pushed in one area and banned in another?
Can I just say
but I think what it is, what I'm getting at, is why the emphasis on
it's time specific. Like, they know the time schedule. They know when we're, you know, things are going to be happening. And, like, you know, so, you know, it's controlling the reaction. And they might want the riots here before they have them in France and Germany. Obviously, we had Greece, where they were controlling the riots there. They had quite a few experiments there in, like, you know, turning the power off, waiting 3 days. about 3 days without power and you start writing for food. You know, so, you know, they're doing these experiments, and like it's a slow stage and it's a slow progression. Nothing happens quickly, like, you know, it's happening like at a steady pace, like moving towards their agenda. Like, it's a new world order, like, you know, before that comes in, like, you know, we're going to see like the expansion of Europe, like more power handed to Europe, collapse of the British police system. This is why I don't want to get rid of them. Like, I think they just need better control. They need to be acting on their own. I don't want to see the privatisation, Group 4 moving in, like, you know, that all being swallowed by Europe. You can now have European police on British streets with guns. They passed these laws in secret. They've got these powers. They're implementing like their long-range strategy. Like, it's not a quick strategy. It's been planned over hundreds of years, if not thousands. They're running the show, and like, you know, we can only guess at like the overall plan and like, you know, how to counter it. Like, you know, but one thing that's not an option is sitting there and doing nothing. If we're just getting out and working together, whatever comes at us, we can deal with it better.
It's like now G4S, I don't know if people are getting letters from G4S wanting to put smart meters in the house.
Yeah, I wouldn't have a meter off them like
No,
that.
but that's something now that more people becoming aware of, that G4S, we've got one, G4S wants to put a smart meter in.
Yeah.
But why G4S?
I think they've done sort of shifty deal, corporate deal, like, you know, where they're handing over like the ownership of the meters to G4S. You know, so that's all part of the plan, like, you know, but don't have their meters. If they come to me and they want to stick a new meter in, I'll be saying, no, while you're here, take that one away and get them to remove it.
You can write them saying you don't want it. I've done it, yeah.
Put your own meter in?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right. A lot of people going for this option of having the meters removed. I think somebody posted a YouTube video the other day where they notified the electric board, like, you know, so what the electric board did, he came out and the guy had fitting his own meter. Well, the meter he'd taken out that belonged to the electric board, he'd taken out and he'd put it in a box ready to give to them. It was a mistake, because they came out and then took his meter and left the meter that was like, you know, in the box in there. So they could still say to a court that our meter is in that house if we want access to read that meter. Well, should have leave the other one in situ. If they come out, remove your meter, take it with you when you go.
When you put your meter in.
Yeah, wait till they've gone, they can't come back.
And deny them access to.
And then deny all access, and like, you know, do what, let's say I've got an independent power system, like, you know, so that just gives them another extra thing to think about, like, you know, and so, you know.
Can we? Yeah.
Okay, right, well, thanks very much, Steve. I think we should give Steve a round of applause.